The Hashira training arc was only 9 chapters long, but let me tell you, it was the perfect prelude to the final battle against Muzan and his demons. From pre-established character drama to a sudden sense of urgency and of course, the training itself, the Hashira training arc had so many beautiful, refreshing, sad, and sentimental moments that makes it feel like a movie in and of itself. Note that we're only talking about the complete manga version of the arc. The anime adaptation of this arc has only released the first episode in theaters, so you won't get everything until it actually starts premiering this month. Now what we're going to do is that we'll be reviewing everything that happens in this short and sweet arc. If you guys have been liking the content so far or any of my other videos, please drop a like, comment, and go ahead and subscribe. Next goal is 1,000 subscribers. Now let's get back into it. My name is TK, let's get into some anime. Starting off with chapter 128, Tanjiro learns that the swordsmith village was moved, which is understandable as even when lives are lost, the world shall not stop turning, right? We follow a conversation between Goto from the Kakushi Brigade. It is a little silly, stuff like Muichiro and Mitsuru only took 2 days to wake up, and were already fully recovered by day 3, while Tanjiro on the other hand was out cold for 7 days. Still, Goto is impressed by how Tanjiro is gradually becoming more and more like the pillars. But more importantly, what about Nezuko? Goto is concerned. What's going on? Isn't it bad for Nezuko to walk under the sun? After speaking of Nezuko, she is now able to hold basic conversations and say things like "Welcome back, Inosuke." Zenitsu tries proposing to her and she hits him with a "Welcome back, Inosuke." Apparently Inosuke arrived 2 days earlier and he made it his goal to have Nezuko remember his name. Now guys, this is just the first half of chapter 128. We're going to breeze through all 9 chapters of the story arc and then there will be a quick conclusion at the end. Stick around till the end because this is about to get more and more interesting by the minute. Like on one hand, Tanjiro has finally woken up and on the other hand, there is now an emergency pillar meeting at the Ubuyashiki's estate. All the pillars are present except Rengoku and Tengen, of course, at this point. There is a little goofy dialogue and then Kaguya Ubuyashiki's wife Amane pulls up. She attends in her husband's stead and the meeting starts. It's about how Muzan is going to come after Nezuko because he seeks to conquer the sun, and it's also about the Demon Slayer's mark that appeared on Muichiro and Mitsuri during the battle against the Upper Moon 5 and Upper Moon 4 respectively. Amane reveals that the pioneers of breathing techniques also had Demon Slayer marks, back during the golden age of Demon Slayers. This statement catches the pillars off guard because they knew nothing about it, which makes sense as it has been quite a long time since then. However, Amane further reveals that once the mark appears on one Demon Slayer, it starts spreading to others, almost as if they are resonating with each other. And in the current times, the first Slayer to awaken the mark is our boy Tanjiro. He wasn't able to properly explain how he got it though, and I guess you can say the same about Mitsuri. She is not that good at explaining herself either. Fortunately, Muichiro is there. He addresses all the pillars and tells them that if they fulfill the conditions he is about to tell them, everyone can get these marks. This is where the first chapter of the arc ends. Following this, Muichiro explains that you need a heart rate of over 200 beats per minute and a body temperature of around 39 degrees. Meet these conditions and you'll awaken the mark. It really is that simple. It is decided that from here on out, it is the priority of every pillar to awaken their marks, with no exception. Giyu Tomioka attempts to leave, which brings out an intriguing reaction from Obanai, an aggressive reaction from Tsunemi, and a curious reaction from Shinobu. Giyu seems like he does not want to be part of the team. Why though? Anyways, Guillaume stops them before anyone gets too aggressive and makes an interesting proposal. Meanwhile, Haganazuka is done polishing the blade they found in Sayorichi Type 0. It is now as good as new and the handguard has been switched with the one that was on Rengoku's blade. And guys, this is going to be a spoiler, but despite Tanjiro's bad habit of breaking his blades, this one does not break until after Muzan is dead. Later, Inosuke breaks into the room. He is as lively as ever and he mentions something about a training session. Chapter 129 ends here and chapter 130 begins with the proper announcement of the training. As you can guess, Guillaume's proposal at the end of the meeting was for the pillars to train those who are not pillars. Ever since Nezuko conquered the sun, the numbers of demons have noticed a massive decline. It is calm before a storm. but it frees up the schedule of the pillars and gives them the time they need to train regular demon slayers. Tanjiro and Inosuke are excited. Zenitsu is rather depressed about it, but that's just how he always is. But why is he depressed? Isn't he just training? Well, for the record, Zenitsu does cheer when Tanjiro praises him, but as for the training, it is anything but just training. This is how it goes. First, Uzui does the initial hazing via basic stamina training. Then, Muichiro deals with quick movement training. Mitsuri handles the hellish flexibility training. Obanai helps with sword skill revision. Sanemi is about infinite pounding training. And Guillaume trains muscle reinforcement. All of them together are collectively whipping everyone into shape. The pillars also get to improve because they are handling a stupid number of demon slayers at once, while the demon slayers are motivated unlike ever before because this is all heading towards the final war against the demons, against Muzan. We're 3 chapters into this arc and it's already heating up, although there is still one man who does not seek to be part of the team. It's Giyu Tomioka. He is all alone when Tanjiro pulls up to bother him. Tanjiro mentions the training and asks Giyu to train him. Giyu is kind of upset at him for not sticking to water breathing, and of course Tanjiro has his reasons. He is simply not built for water breathing. However, Giyu brings an interesting point. He states that the position of the water pillar is empty. What does that mean? Isn't he the water pillar? Well, yes, but actually no. Giyu Tomioka replies that he is not the water pillar, and this is where it makes sense why he didn't consider himself a part of the team during the emergency pillar meeting. A really sad expression takes over Tanjiro's face. We learn that before he checked up on Giyu, he was specifically asked by Kage himself to talk to Giyu and ask him to face forward with everyone. That's why after 4 days of Tanjiro constantly bothering him, Giyu gives up and opens up to him. He explains he never actually passed the final selection and tells us the story of a boy that we already know all too well, the boy named Sabito. We already know that Sabito was killed by the demon hand, but what we did know is that Giyu was his best friend. They both participated in the same year, and Sabito even saved him during that same selection exam. As it turns out, Giyu has never forgiven himself for what happened. He does not consider himself a pillar because he couldn't even kill a single demon during the selection exam. The only reason he survived is because of Sabito, but Sabito himself died. He was the only one who died in that year's selection exam. Tanjiro tears up as Giyu declares that he will never get the mark. He says that maybe Sabito would have gotten it, as he tells Tanjiro to stop concerning himself with him. Giyu also calls himself a waste of time. This is where chapter 130 ends. The next chapter begins with Tanjiro sympathizing with Giyu. He can tell that Giyu thinks his own death would be a good thing. Tanjiro also recalls Sabito and Giyu's sister from when they trained him. He realized that if Sabito was still alive, he would have been an awesome pillar, and he also understands that this is why Giyu finds it so hard to move on. Well, Tanjiro can feel him. He also feels the same way about Rengoku Kyojiro's death after all. Tanjiro thought that it would have been better if he had died instead of Rengoku, but that's not how it is, right? Rengoku believed in Tanjiro and the others. That's why their only choice is to live up to it. But what should he say to Giyu, who is still stuck in the past? What can he say to Giyu? Out of nowhere, he asks Giyu that isn't what Sabito entrusted to him is also what's keeping the two of them together. Giyu feels a little taken aback. He recalls a vision where Sabito punches him in the face. He tells him that wishing for his own death is an insult to his sister who died protecting him. Sabito reminds Giyu that the life she gave to protect him, the future she left for him, it's all still within him. Giyu touches his face right where Sabito punched him. He apologizes to both Sabito and his sister. He apologizes for being so immature. Giyu pulls himself together, turns around and apologizes to Tanjiro as well, while telling him that he is ready to return to training. Coincidentally, Tanjiro asks him out on a food eating contest right at that exact moment. The next thing you know, Tanjiro and Giyu are duking it out at the local ramen store. But the chapter is not over yet. There is Shinobu, who is having trouble staying composed because of the bloodlust she has for the demon who killed her sister. When Kanao asks her to train him, she declines. This saddens our girl Kanao, as she really wants to train with Shinobu, and seeing this, Shinobu cheers up a little as well. She compliments Kanao for being honest with her feelings considering how bottled up she has been all her life, and then proceeds to shift the conversation toward a rather interesting and important topic. She catches Kanao's attention by mentioning the demon who killed her sister, and then reveals that she is going to tell her how to kill it. The complete conversation isn't revealed during this arc, but without getting into spoilers, let me tell you that the way they defeat that demon is quite something indeed. Moving on to the final section of chapter 131, Tamayo is invited to the Ubuyashiki estate to help them defeat Muzan. And the next chapter, Tanjiro is finally fully recovered. He has a blast training with Tengen, and Tengen's wives are delighted to have him too. After just 10 days, he is done with the basic stamina training and gets the green light to move on to the next training, which is Muichiro's quick movement training. Muichiro is pleased to have him, and Tanjiro gets the go to move on to the next training within just 5 days. This does feel a little unfair to the rest of them because they have been at Muichiro's mercy for like 2 weeks, but Tanjiro is Tanjiro. Now, the next one is a hellish flexibility training with Mitsuri. Sweet and lively Mitsuri is overjoyed to have Tanjiro. They have pancakes, there's belly dancing, and it doesn't really take long before Tanjiro understands the meaning of hellish flexibility training. I mean, imagine Mitsuri stretching her limbs using her brute strength. Now, following Mitsuri, we have Obanai's sword skill revision. He warns Tanjiro that he is not a nice person like Mitsuri, and he's not kidding around because Tanjiro has to swing his sword in a room full of tied up fellow demon slayers. He has to do it without hitting any of them, and to do that, he has to bend his sword in strange ways like Obanai himself. He also has to watch out for Obanai's own sword strikes. It's tough, but Tanjiro managed to somehow after 4 days of constant struggle. Obanai still hates him though, and he tells him to never talk casually with Mitsuri ever again. Next up, we have Tsunemi's infinite pounding training. When Tanjiro gets there, Zenitsu is having a full-blown mental breakdown. Heck, he literally passes out when Tsunemi comes after him. Tanjiro carries him back to Tsunemi's place, and as they are on their way, Tsunemi tells Tanjiro that he still hasn't accepted him, but Tanjiro immediately replies that it's okay because he hasn't accepted him either. He stabbed Nezuko after all. Tanjiro reminds Tsunemi. Now, the training begins and Tsunemi just slashes you relentlessly. It is hardcore and non-stop. Even worse than Obanai's training because at least Obanai gives breaks, but Tsunemi is relentless. It's just day 1 and Tanjiro's already all messed up from head to toe. And to make it worse, right as the chapter ends, he walks in on Tsunemi talking down to Genya, telling him that he has no brother. Chapter 133 begins with Genya desperately trying to have a proper conversation with his brother, but when he mentions how he ate demons just so he can fight, Tsunemi flips. He glares at Genya like when Shanks uses Conqueror's Haki. Tsunemi is disgusted. He plunges forward at absurd speed and attempts to poke both of Genya's eyes. Fortunately, Tanjiro grabs him before it's too late. When he asks Tsunemi about it, was he trying to kill Genya? Tsunemi explains that no, he was just trying to incapacitate Genya just enough that he quit being a demon slayer. Of course, Tanjiro speaks up for Genya and also mentions how if it weren't for Genya, they wouldn't have defeated Upper Rank Moon 4, but whatever. Tsunemi decides that he will incapacitate Tanjiro too. He punches him in the gut, but is also a bit surprised when Tanjiro somewhat blocks him. Tanjiro doesn't just block him either, he lands a kick and breaks free. Zenitsu on the other hand follows Tanjiro's orders. He tries to take Genya and run, but Genya slashes at him when he criticizes his brother. Honestly, I truly believe that Genya's dynamic with Tsunemi and their entire story is among the top 5 most beautiful things about Demon Slayer. It perfectly shows us the paradoxical nature of relationships between brothers. In the end, it all devolves into one chaotic mess. Tanjiro gets a scolding from the higher-ups, and he is also banned from approaching Tsunemi. Well, it is what it is, I guess. Next up is Guillaume's muscle reinforcement training. When Tanjiro and Zenitsu arrive, Inosuke and other demon slayers are standing underneath the waterfall, bearing its monumental pressure. Behind them is Guillaume carrying a set of rocks on his back. If you ease your mind, even fire will become cold, he says. Chapter 134 begins with Guillaume explaining the training schedule. First, they'll have to let the waterfall beat them. Then, they're going to carry the 3 massive logs on their shoulders. And finally, they shall push a boulder through a town. It's definitely easier said than done. Heck, Zenitsu passes out just from hearing what they will have to do. But Guillaume tells Tanjiro to dump him in the water and he wakes up instantly. It's harsh. The water is cold. It takes everything they have just to get through the first step. The gang eats some fish together to regain some energy, and Inosuke makes an interesting comment. He said that there is no doubt about it. Guillaume is the strongest demon slayer. Tanjiro agrees because he is the only one with a different smell. His demon slayer mark may have already appeared. Zenitsu is kind of bitter though. He says that not even Guillaume himself can push a rock through a town, implying that Guillaume must be picking on them. But Tanjiro points behind them and it's Guillaume pushing rocks, the biggest ones ever. This inspires Tanjiro and Inosuke, and they get right back to the training. Zenitsu too, but let's just say he is not as inspired. Soon, Tanjiro completes the first 2 steps, but as expected, pushing the rock is the hardest step. But one thing interesting about Guillaume's training is how you can quit anytime you want. He is not forcing anyone to go through it. Many quit. Some stay, and those who stay develop a newfound appreciation for the strength of the pillars. However, even after 6 days, Tanjiro is still unable to push the rock. He is lying on the ground at night, just staring at the sky, when he sees Genya's face. Tanjiro freaks out while Genya asks him if the mark on his forehead got bigger. Sure enough, the mark is noticeably bigger and thicker. The conversation leads back to the rock though, and Tanjiro asks Genya if he can push it, and yes, he can. This surprises Tanjiro, and so Genya explains that it's all about repeated action. There are actually a set of predetermined movements that you take to maximum concentration. They are talking about it all and how Sir Guillaume actually sucks at teaching you, so you have to watch him instead. Little do they know, Guillaume himself is right there behind the trees. Now, chapter 134 ends with Nakame surveying the whereabouts of demon slayers using her abilities. Muzan is with her. He appreciates her abilities and is looking forward to when she finds out about the whereabouts of Nezuko and Kage Ubuyashiki. Chapter 135 starts and we continue the conversation about repeated actions. Basically, it's a technique that allows you to fully use all 5 of your senses. Guillaume and Genya recall painful memories to get into their state of flow, and so the next time Tanjiro gives it a go, he starts remembering the faces of his friends and family. He recalls Goku's last words and tries to set his heart ablaze. Still, Tanjiro is unable to push it. However, as he tries again and again and focuses on the repeated action, it finally happens. He pushes the rock and he keeps pushing it. And now that he lets up, even for a single moment, he will lose his concentration. Somehow, Inosuke also manages to move the rock when he uses his Tempura Pig Assault. Now, what about Zenitsu? Can he do it too? Suddenly, the crow appears and delivers a letter to him. Going back to Tanjiro, he completes it. He completes the training by moving the rock across a town. He has almost killed himself while doing it though. He is dehydrated and pretty much lifeless. He was literally going to die, but Guillaume then drops some water in his mouth and he recovers. Tanjiro thanks him, but Guillaume keeps dropping the water. He congratulates our boy on completing the training and also respects him for doing the right thing in the village, referring to how Tanjiro prioritized saving the villagers over his sister. Of course, Tanjiro did not accept this. He declares that it was not him. It was Nezuko who made the choice for him. Hearing this, Guillaume has a monologue which states that children are pure, naive, and weak. They are quick to lie, completely fine with cruelty, just selfish little things. But Guillaume understands. He understands that Tanjiro is different. Guillaume cries as he tells Tanjiro that no matter what, he will accept him. Tanjiro is a little confused by this, and so Guillaume starts talking about his past. Yes guys, in chapter 135 of the manga, we get Guillaume's flashback, and it is just heartbreaking. Long ago, he raised 9 kids in a temple. They had no parents and nowhere to call home, but they bonded together with each other, and Guillaume raised them like a family. However, one night, one of the kids ignored the rules and left the temple at night. Outside, he ran into a demon, and in order to save himself, he offered the lives of Guillaume and the 8 other children. They already had a wisteria incense outside the temple to keep demons away, but the kids put it out and allows the demon to enter. The demon immediately kills 4 of them. Guillaume tries to protect the other 4, but because he was skinny and blind and his voice was soft, 3 of them ignore him and try to run. Unfortunately, they are killed as well. The only one who remains is the youngest girl. Her name was Sayo, and Guillaume fought the demon with his fist to protect her. He punches and punches the demon. He is disgusted by it, but also surprised at his own strength. He keeps at it until the sun comes out. Unfortunately, when the other villagers come to rescue, Sayo tells him that he is a monster. He killed everyone. Tanjiro is horrified at this, but Guillaume adds that he knows Sayo meant no harm. She was just 4 years old, and she must have gotten traumatized and confused by everything that happened that night. He did want her to thank him, but in the end, he was charged with murder and imprisoned. He was sentenced to death, and he would have died if Kage Ubuyashiki didn't intervene. Now, because of what happened, Gyu became a distrustful person, but he understands that Tanjiro is special. He never ran, never looked away, and never lied. That's why Tanjiro is so special, and that's why he promises that no matter what, he will help Tanjiro stay on the path. Tanjiro tears up. He thanks Guillaume for his sincerity and promises to do his best. Guillaume then gently pats Tanjiro on the head as he recalls the time he spent with Sayo. He smiles as he declares that the training is now complete. But wait, there's still one more chapter left of this arc, guys. it's not over yet. The final chapter of the Hashira training arc begins with Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Genya having a meal together. Genya mentions that Guillaume is really a good person, and also about how he made Genya his apprentice. They also talk about how Shinobu took a look at Genya's condition, but she ended up being disgusted, and she also lectured him on eating demons. Tanjiro reassures him and tells him that she is just worried about him. And as this conversation is going on, Tanjiro says that he is going to meet Giyu and wonders if Genya wants to tag along. Genya says that he hasn't moved his rock all the way across the town yet. Inosuke then starts laughing at him because he can't use breaths. This leads to a fight. Tanjiro tries to stop them, and then before he leaves, he said that he wanted to talk about Sanemi's brother with him. Anyways, as he is on his way to Giyu, Tanjiro notices Zenitsu sitting on the boulder. He is eerily silent. He hasn't moved the boulder yet, and Tanjiro is concerned about him. Zenitsu tells him just to do what he has to do. As for himself, he has to come to terms with what he has to as well. The panel with Zenitsu's face is rather cold, but again, we don't learn the full context of what was in the letter until the final battle begins. Next, Tanjiro walks in on a fight between Giyu and Sanemi. It's hardcore. They're using their breathing techniques and they are pulling no punches. Even when their wooden swords break, Sanemi just proposes fighting with their fists. Tanjiro pulls up in between them both and tells them to stop. He assumes that they were fighting over ohagi, which is a traditional Japanese treat. Sanemi is further enraged and he asks Tanjiro if he is making fun of him, but Tanjiro simply reveals that he knows how much Sanemi likes ohagi. He goes on a full speech about how he caught the scent of ohagi at Sanemi's place and everything, and even Giyu starts asking Sanemi if he likes ohagi. Now, since Tanjiro doesn't shut up, Sanemi ends up punching him in the face and storming off in a rage. Guess Sanemi is a tsundere. When Tanjiro wakes up, Giyu explains that they weren't really fighting, it was just a part of their training to fight fellow pillars. Giyu does mention that Sanemi seems mad at him for some reason, but now that he knows that Sanemi likes ohagi, he is planning on giving him some when he sees him again. Tanjiro thinks it's a great idea, and Giyu smiles because thanks to this, they will finally get along. Speaking of Sanemi, he is walking alone, expressing anger at Tanjiro when suddenly he hears something in the bushes. He plunges forward and grabs it. It's a demon's crushed eye. On the other hand, Kibutsuji Muzan arrives right outside Kaguya Ubuyashiki's residence. This was chapter 136, the final chapter of the Hashira training arc. What do you think? It's just 9 chapters. We had the lore of the Demon Slayer marks, Tamayo joining forces with Ubuyashiki estate, Giyu's dilemma, Shinobu's anger, Genya and Sanemi's relationship, Guillaume's harsh training and his flashback, Zenitsu's moment of abrupt clarity, and of course, Muzan's arrival at Ubuyashiki's residence thanks to Nakame. That is a hell of a story and is overall a brilliant setup for the final battle saga. There was a major highlight in every chapter, and it wasn't until this arc that we truly started feeling the emotional connection with every Hashira. Brilliant. Simply brilliant. But of course, I am interested in hearing you all's thoughts as well. If you guys liked the video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It will really help me out. The next goal is 1,000 subscribers. And what do you think of the Hashira training arc? Come on guys, let's continue the conversation down in the comment section below. And don't forget to like once again and subscribe. Well, with that said, I'll see you guys on the next video. My name is TK, loving us some anime.
満開千本桜影吉